You're on the air with Air Raid Radio with hosts Amy Loria
and Kara White. Our show features women in aviation, including those who have made history and those who are currently making shockwaves of their own. We are a pre-recorded show. If you'd like to call in and leave a comment, call us at 478-787-4768 or comment on our Facebook page and we will answer them on our next show.
Our show is sponsored by Hemlock Films and Spotlight Business Solutions.
Hold on to your hats. Here comes Air Raid Radio.
You've been warned.
Welcome to Air Raid Radio. You've got Kara and Amy on
Hello.
Again, and we're in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, so our interview is going to end up being a little dated. I'm sure there's going to be comments about it, so I'm just going to preface the show with that. And today we're going to talk about a friend of ours, Chris Henry, who has written a book called The Final Mission about the aluminum overcast, which is the EAA's B-17 that flies World War II veterans on occasion. And it's a collection of stories of them and their experience. And it's a really well done and it's a very beautiful book. So I know our show is normally aimed at women in aviation, but this is just such a great story that we wanted to share it, and there's great section about the women who dealt with B-17 in it, so we're going to use that as our tie-in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Chris worked with Bryan, who's one of the senior editors at EAA, on it as well, so he's going to be joining us. But yeah, I mean, the book has so many beautiful stories, just not just about the men, but the women too. A couple of Rosie the Riveters. There's some wasps in the book as well.
And the gals with the Red Cross, which I just thought that was great too, that it's just the fact that they wanted to include the people who were there for comfort. They would bring the guys donuts and would play music and just, be there to lift their spirits, which I'm sure a lot of us can identify with at this moment in time. That you just need a little bit of happiness every once in a while and a little connection with people. So we also had a little bit of the book that I really enjoyed. So Amy kind of explains a little bit more what's going on in the book, if you want to read that for us.
Excerpt from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So aluminum overcast has been flying around the country, touching lives wherever it lands. It serves in many roles today, but one of the most powerful roles is that of healer. It has brought peace to many of our veterans and family members who came to see it. Many of the veterans had stories that they had kept inside for decades. Then the sights and smell of the aircraft brought them back, and they were able to share with our crews and families about their experiences. Many times the stories were being told for the first time, and I think that's just such a powerful excerpt from the book.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great bits in this book, and a lot of it makes me cry a lot, including the foreword, and that's when I knew I was not gonna make it.
I know.
When there's words like "the fate of the free world was on the shoulder of kids." There's just a lot of really great bits in it. So, anyways, with that being said, we're gonna bring on
Get him on the phone.
Our guests. So here comes Bryan and Chris Henry. Hal with the EAA, who's a senior editor, and Chris, who's a program coordinator at the EAA. And welcome, you guys.
Well, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is great. Much appreciated.
We're very excited. So before we get started, I wanted to ask about how did the opening of the WASP exhibit go?
Oh, it went really good. We had a nice turnout. If you've seen the UPS video that was out there with the young woman fly, we had her do the ribbon cutting along with the daughters of a WASP that was from our local community here. So I wish I could tell you a bunch about the reception to it. The people that were there that day loved it, but everything hit like a couple days later. So really excited to. Yeah, we had the exhibit open for maybe I want to say a week, something like that. When this whole dust started up here, and we had to shut down the museum until this virus clears. So really excited to get back at it. But the people who did get to see it loved it. The families of a few of the WASP that came were the daughters of Ethel Jones, who was our local WASP. They had tears in their eyes and gave us all hugs, and so we know that we did right by them. And the young lady who cut the ribbon, she was really into it, and yeah, it was really cool. Really, it's a really special exhibit to have, and it's one that we're proud to have in the museum.
Oh, that's
And
great.
actually, and Hal did the, you know, me and Ben did some of like the artifact side of it. Hal did a lot of the writing and the proofreading in the exhibit. So it's everything that kind of goes on here is a team effort, and I mean, it's a proud moment to see how you can touch families with the exhibits and things like that, and let them see a sense of their own family history. I mean, it's pretty cool.
I can't wait to see it when we're actually able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than the massive global crisis, everything went really well.
That's good.
That's a plus.
Just looking on the bright side over here.
Yeah, there you go.
Got to do that.
Yeah. So, Chris, I just finished the book yesterday, and
Awesome.
what I absolutely adore this book. But one of my favorite things that I like that you guys included in it was the section with the women who had experience with the B-17. I love that I mean, of course, I love that there's a WASP segment, as always, and that it's got Betty Strophus in there as well. And there's a few pics of
So excited to
Schutze
see
Reynolds and Don Seymour who got to fly on the plane. So can you tell us a little bit about Betty and her connection to your museum?
Absolutely. So I think early on, Hal and I sat down and we knew especially being EAA, I mean, I think it would be a bit different maybe if we were the 8th Air Force Museum or something like that, but being EAA, which, you know, our whole main mission is to drive people to want to fly. I think we knew early on we wanted to include some of the stories from like Rosie the Riveter and some stuff from the home front, like the WASP. And when I think of WASP, I'm guilty because Betty Strophus spent time in our museum. We actually, she came for a visit. We had a heads up that she was coming. And we actually put Jeff Benedict in vinyl, put her name on the T6 that we have in our collection. And so when she came out, she was surprised to have her name, and it said Avenger Field underneath it. We didn't know what to expect when we first met her, so we thought that, like, hey, we should have a wheelchair ready, you know, because we had never met her. She came in and immediately hit on all of us, and then basically
She did that.
yes, she did that, absolutely,
all the time.
and basically led us to the, you know, down to the Eagle hangar where she wanted to see her, you know, the T6, but she had no idea her name was on the airplane. So that was an emotional reaction, and of course to that, and so when we were doing that, we had to put Betty in it, you know. And then Hal, you worked on a lot of the other part where we did that whole WASP flight. You put that part in, right?
I certainly worked on it. Actually, Jen Knack did a lot of the writing, so she and I collaborated quite a bit on some of those pieces, and then, you know, getting that whole WASP flight section built into the book. But it's gratifying that we live in a world now. Well, there's nothing gratifying about the world right now, but it's gratifying that a month ago we lived in a world where women like WASP they're getting recognized, and it's finally, like, I don't think, and Chris, you know, I think you'd agree, we didn't look at this book and then sort of, you know, at the last minute say, oh my gosh, we should shoehorn some stuff in there about WASP. It was just something that it's part of the history now. It's not, didn't scratch our heads and say we've got sort of a diversity quotient to check off or something. It's just,
right.
It's an accepted and part of the history. It's a normal thing to include.
Yeah.
And I find that gratifying.
Yeah. And that was one of my other favorite things, is that something that you also included in the book was the women with the Red Cross and the Rosies at home. So it was kind of nice just to cover all those different aspects of what women were doing at that time, that it wasn't strict. And I love that you included the ground crew, which is also often neglected in these types of books. So it made it for a much more well-rounded story to include everybody who was part of that. So tell me a little bit what inspired you to want to make this book.
Jack Pelton said, go make a book.
When the CEO talks.
Said, yes, and Jim Bush said, don't let us down. And me and Hal said, oh my God.
No pressure.
So really where it all started was I'm a B-17 nerd, and when I started in our membership services department, Nikki Watts, who runs membership, said, I know you're a B-17 nut. Why don't I put you on the calls that are coming in for people who are ordering flights on the airplane? And it kind of was just a really neat thing where people would call in, and there's a time where the computer has to process the order, so you're kind of stuck there with dead silence. So I would just make small talk of, what makes you want to buy the flight, and people would really share these really neat stories of like, oh, we're buying a flight for my dad who was a pilot in one, or I want to go learn more about what my grandparents did. And then it just kind of natural of my own geekdom was sort of like, oh, like what bomb group was he in, or did his airplane have a name? And it all kind of started from there as far as collecting the stories. And I've always been a sucker for that. I was a volunteer before I worked here for the Timeless Voices program. And then after like maybe about a couple years of doing that, I helped with the media flights, and we were getting these amazing stories, and I would do my best. It was more just for fun, to record it or save it somehow, however I could, on like a Facebook page, and then basically I turned it into a presentation that I've done during the convention and local areas and stuff, and then I did it for a group. I think it was the EAA board, and Rose Pelton, Jack's wife, was there and saw it, and she was like, "You guys have to do a book." And Jack said, "Well, she has spoken. You guys need to go do a book." So it put me and Hal in hot water, but it's been a real privilege to do it, and the whole team. And I know Hal knows a lot more on the production side of who did what, but there's just an amazing team that really came together to make this happen.
Yeah, and I for one was following your Facebook posts on all these different stories that you're doing, and everyone is just incredible. So I was really super excited that it was in a book. So some of them I'm like, oh, I know this one. So I would come across them.
Some of them.
I think that's the ultimate, and I'll be honest, it's the ultimate compliment, is that those stories have a place to live now. They're not just stuck on like a Facebook page or on a hard drive, and that. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and it's a really beautifully put together book. The photos are nice, like the stories are great, and it flows really well.
You pointed something out earlier too that I didn't even notice about the cover.
Oh yeah, the cover is amazing. So we'll have pictures of this on our Facebook page as well. But the cover is, of course, the aluminum overcast with the EAA. But in the clouds, you can see the outline, or the very faintly pictures of the B-17 crew guys, which I think is really, really nice because it doesn't hit you over the head, and you kind of have to really look at it to see it.
The credit for that goes to Brandon Jacobs, who's our senior graphic designer, our graphic design manager at EAA. So he does the layouts for Sport Aviation, and then leads the team that does some of the other stuff as well. And boy, he worked on that forever. And the other piece of the cover that you've got to point out is, if you notice that the B-17 reflects light differently than the sky background or the titles or anything else, he spent I don't know how many hours just pixel by pixel carefully cutting out the airplane so that we could have the separation run done. And it's, if you look at the even the antenna wire is individually cut out and has the different reflectivity. So between that and the faces and the clouds and blending the titles into the clouds and stuff, and just the whole overall look and feel gets Brandon deserves all the kudos for that. I would like to point out, however, that if you pick up the book, if you hold it in your hand and then sort of tip it toward you, if you notice in the binding, there's little threads there that sort of hold the pages to the spine. If you look down from the top, I chose the colors for those. That was one of the coolest days of my life. It's like, Brandon comes to my desk and he's got this giant. Got this. Thank you. Yes, I think we should pause and acknowledge the depth of this contribution. But
whatever you need, man.
All right. Thank you. Man. I was there, man. Was there. But it was just, I got such a kick out of it because going into this, and I've worked on other books before, but we've never been. This is the first thing that we've been completely hands-on with the publishing through and through at EAA, and so, going into it, none of us really knew what we didn't know. But then to sort of sit down and say, okay, it's time to pick the colors for the binding thread. Cool. The what?
I'm
I
all
think the
over
black
it.
and yellow, I think it makes the book, frankly.
Oh, that's the best part of the whole book.
Yeah, people have had us sign the binding thread. It's been
Yes.
pretty.
Besides that remarkable feat, Hal, what else was your role in making of the book?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
That's it.
No, so Chris is very generous to acknowledge my contributions, but you'll notice on the spine and inside the book it says Chris Henry with Hal Bryan. I mean, I'm the backup singer on this one. Maybe I'm the backup dancer, the eye candy, however you want to
We can call
look
you
at
whatever
it.
you like.
Yeah.
Well,
The
let me swipe
doo-wop
my
girl.
credit card. Hang on. These are truly, kidding aside, these are truly Chris's stories that he's collected and assembled. My role was to help wrangle them, help sort of figure out the order of some things. I wrote some sort of connecting text, things that sort of, help this flow, the section flow into that section a little bit better. It was it was a lot of editing and a modest amount of writing. Little things like, I wrote the words on the back and wrote the dedication, but otherwise sort of throughout, there's little touches of mine that hopefully, hopefully Chris would agree, just take Chris's stories and put them together in an order that makes sense and in a way that everyone can read through and enjoy.
Yeah, it was
Awesome.
I definitely want to call out that for the first part, proud to be on a book with Hal, and this is no joke. I literally handed in a Word document. I mean, that's Microsoft Word, because I
actually the first draft was done in Microsoft Paint.
Yeah.
Then we got it. That helped a lot.
Without Hal and the gang, it would be a coloring book. So really, I
I'd still buy that.
to be on the team with these guys.
Well, it turned out wonderful. Amy, go ahead.
Sorry, I've got a little bit of a delay because my internet is not cooperating this afternoon, so I apologize for interrupting, Kara. But Chris, you've got so many stories. How did you pick which ones to put in the book? Because I'm sure you have far more than actually made it into the book. And with that, will you make a second one? Loaded question.
She already wants a sequel.
I'm sure if Hal was drinking, he just spit water out.
I muted first. So, I'm making a quick note. The final mission.
Yeah, the final mission.
The more final mission.
Yeah, mission. Yeah.
It was very tough to pick the stories. I mean, some of them were naturals. I mean, some of them were. We have to tell the story of. So we wanted to tell a smattering of each, a good sampling of each crew position. Okay. So that was something we wanted to make sure that we had. We wanted to try to spread that as evenly as we could. There are certain people, and I think Hal would agree, that are just more symbolic with our airplane more than others, like Doug Ward or Fred Zerbakken, who were ball turret gunners, who they literally volunteered on our airplane. Hal Weekly, who was a pilot and helped spearhead the restoration of our airplane. And then there's others that, of course, their stories were just so incredibly touching that you couldn't, if you could get through the story and get teared up, I think that there's something there, that there was something that needed to be told. I mean, every story deserved to be told, but we had to choose. So we certainly went for ones that either meant a lot to us or to our aircraft, or that were just really remarkably powerful. But at the end of the day, the one thing we wanted to make sure and this is something that Hal really helped me with, was making sure every story was connected with our aircraft. We knew this person has this amazing story, and by the way, they flew with us on the 10 o'clock flight out in Ukiah, California, in October. And so it's a story that we're very proud of, because there's other B-17s out there flying, but this event and this story only happened with our aircraft, our crew, and it's one sliver of it's one airplane story of what it's been able to do with our veterans. And I mean, how do you think that is on the spot there?
Absolutely. And I on the editing side of things, I stopped counting when I realized I had read every single page of this book 16 times. just going through, and it's I mean, it sounds so silly, but it's honestly true. Just the number of times it goes through, so the word stage and then early design and all these layouts and everything else. And there are still like was it Alan Chandler's story just popped into my head, and we have that image at the end of his service at Arlington, his much belated service at Arlington. I can't even think about that without getting choked up. And every single time, that I would read through it, working on the editing and things like that, I had the same reaction. I still couldn't get through it without tearing up.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories in the book. So Alan, for our listeners, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Alan Chandler story?
Yeah. How do you want me to, or you want to do it?
Oh, absolutely. I believe I said at the outset, these are your stories, Chris. I'll just edit as you speak.
Absolutely, like he verb there. Yeah.
That would be great.
Points off. That was not a proper noun, sir. So we were in Oklahoma City, and or I'm sorry, not Oklahoma City. It was in Kansas City, I believe. But at any rate, we go into a town, and we get a call from a nice lady. Her name was Fern, and Fern just said she wanted to come out and see the airplane. And through talking with her, we found out that her husband Alan had been a radio operator on B-17 in the 91st Bomb Group, and was still listed as missing in action. He was never recovered. And she said, I've never been in a B-17, and I just would like to go see where he sat and what it looked like. And of course, little shoehorn commercial, but EA is all about flying and the experience of flying on the airplane. And we didn't tell her, but she got out to the airplane, and we had a seat reserved for her to go flying with us. So she got to go up, sit in the room. We had her seated in the radio room for her flight, so she got to see where Alan would have been. And we had a picture of Alan and his airplane on the radio room table. And they went out flying, came back, and she called and just said what a great flight she'd had. And her and I had just kind of kept in touch. And a couple weeks go by, and we get a call from the Bomb Group Association, and they're like, so the government is looking for Fern Bridges. And we see you posted on Facebook that she was on your airplane. And
I remember this story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Why is the government looking for this lady? They're like, yeah, like did she rob a bank when she left the airplane, or what happened?
Oh God,
And,
I don't know her.
Well, and long story short, they had found a crash site, I believe in Germany, and were looking for relatives of the deceased. When Alan left for war, she was pregnant, and Alan didn't want her going through anything by herself, so he had her move in with his parents and listed his parents as next of kin for everything. So they had no contact for her ever, and they sent a DNA kit so that they could swab the inside cheek of Alan's son, and that confirmed that his remains were there in that crash site over there. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so May 17th, 2018, Alan and his crew came home and were buried at Arlington Cemetery, and they actually flew Fern to Washington, D.C. For the burial.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a little sliver. We, in some way, we helped make that connection. That her flight on Illumina Overcast helped lead to this DNA test, which finally came through and said, yeah, this is, the remains of that crew, and
Wow.
and brought him home ultimately. I mean, that's pretty powerful. I never dreamed in a million years we get to be part of something like that.
Yeah, that's a
Amazing.
really incredible story. And absolutely makes me cry when I read that or hear it.
I know.
Which I think
Right.
every single story I read in this, I teared up at, and I was on the first couple pages, and I texted Chris, and I was like, God dang it, I'm not gonna curse. Adam's catching
I got a note
myself.
from Kara that just said, "You're killing me with this book."
I was just
I think
like,
I sent you that same message a couple of times, Chris.
Yes, you did.
it's a, I mean,
Threats in there, yes.
yeah, it's a hard one to get through sometimes, but
Well,
It's-
and I think if anybody's listening to that, and it's because those stories are so powerful that we knew we had to do the book and we had to get it right. And that, and I think that resonated with everybody that touched this book. I remember one time I went up to work with Brandon on something, and I got geeked out because I was sitting there, and on Brandon's stack of marketing stuff that he's working on is a B-17 flight manual from like World War II, like an original one. And that was just something that will always stick in my head, is seeing Brandon with a B-17 flight manual, because he wanted to make sure that he got like the graphics correct. So everybody that tweaked and worked on this book, I think really took it to heart that it was something important.
Yeah.
But and if I may, we're so lucky, Chris, that we have the resources that we do. I said other books we've done with an outside publisher, and they've gone fine and everything else. But this one, doing everything fully in house, like I said, a lot of learning experiences. But we're lucky that we have things like a library where we could go and get a World War II B-17 flight manual, and we've got, of course, expert graphic designers. We've got, like Brandon, we've got editors. We've got all of that. We have a marketing department. We have merchandising. We have everything that we need to do to put out what we obviously hope is a good quality book. And so far, sales are bearing that out. We don't have it on Amazon yet, and that is the plan, and that'll be important. Even if you don't buy it from Amazon, that's the go-to place for reviews, of course. So
Right.
So we need to get it there. We actually launched the book a couple months early. In fact. Yeah, it was supposed to there was supposed to be a big preview at the Arsenal of Democracy flyover in May, which has been postponed to September, but RB-17 and B-25 were slated to go and participate there out in D.C. And then we had a launch event, which I guess right now, I would say it's still on the books, although everything is a bit up in the air right now. But a launch event around the airplane where we would have media come to EAA. The airplane's is it Florida, Chris, for paint? Or no?
Down in Florida. Yeah.
Okay. So it's down there for paint right now. So as soon as the airplane was going to be back at home would be in June, and so we had we're working on a media event there and do kind of splash, give the press, their B-17 flight, and then here's the book and go tell your friends, that kind of thing, which may still happen. But as it turned out, under the circumstances, it made sense. What, we've got the books. Let's just get them out there and start getting them in people's hands and see what they think.
Yeah.
And give people something to do while we're all sitting at home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely seen a spike in the restorer sales, or DVDs and Blu-rays, because I think everybody's at home looking for something to do.
And what's interesting, I don't want to jinx us here, but what we found, as and Adam and Kara came on with us on the Green Dot podcast that we do, but kind of across the board, podcast listenership is actually down because you don't have people commuting right now.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So when I saw that our numbers were down, I got got a little bit nervous, and then realized, what, you do a little digging and you see it's true across the board. So
yeah,
those will bounce back.
So this feels like a natural segue. Where can you get the book?
Ooh, good question.
You can find it online at EAA.org. I can't remember if we have, Chris, do we have a friendly URL for it? Is it like EAA.org/final mission? I'm going to try that right now.
I know that if you Google EAA, the final mission, it's like the first thing that comes up.
Okay.
I know it's a little cumbersome to find it online, just because it's like, where would it be? And then it's like, oh wait, it's at the top.
And I did
Is
just
that just
verify
an Amy
this.
problem?
I used the internet live on this show. EAA.org/final mission will take you straight there. So the price is $20 for EAA members, $25 without, or if you're not a member. And I don't know how much longer this is going to be going, but as of the date that we're recording this, you can get free shipping if you use the code Final Mission, all in caps.
Oh, dang it! I wish I knew that.
I'm
I paid for
another one
shipping
as we speak, so I'm looking for the code.
We will include.
Let us know if it works.
We will include a link for this when
Chris,
we post.
what were the what's the security code on your credit card number again?
Oh yeah, let me give you the.
Okay, what's the PayPal login?
yeah, why are all these charges on there?
It's fine.
You don't want to see where those charges are coming from. You're like, what is this?
And Amy Bauman, who's been working the print mail center, has really been awesome about cranking out the books in a hurry. So a lot of people have remarked about how fast the books have gotten to them. Although Amy, yours is still in transit, I guess.
Apparently, yeah, I know. That's why I've been a little quiet. I'm like, I haven't had a chance to read it because my book didn't come, so I'm very quiet. I'm very excited about it. Apparently, our order didn't actually go through on our end because we've been having some internet issues, and
no.
that's why I'm buying another one right now. But thanks for calling me out on it online.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Amy
book.
says she likes the book, but
Yeah, so Amy, what do you think you're going to think of it?
True celebrity.
Knowing some of the stories that Chris has told us in person and seeing his presentation, I'm just so excited to actually read it and see all the pictures with it. Kara was showing me pictures beforehand. We did
we did like a little show and tell of me, a story time hour. I'm like,
well,
see, Amy, this is called a book.
That I think is really cool. So there's a lot, but I have seen books written about the B-17, the technical side, and I've seen books written about bomber crews on the personal side. But I don't think we've ever. I don't really recall a book being written about the people side, but that also has an operating B-17. So, when we would do crew stations, we would just send a crew over to go do air-to-air, and we had a B-17 to go play with, a flyable aircraft that, we'd say, oh, we need air-to-air for this, and our air tours department went and did air-to-air with everybody, and the interactive portions of the book, maybe how I'd like to talk about that, I think are really neat to help bring it to life a little bit.
It's. I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris, because it is. Here I was talking about, well, we have a library, we have editors, we have this, we have that. Kind of forgot to mention that, oh, yeah, we have a B-17, too. Really, I don't mean to imply for a second that we take it for granted, but that is, you imagine trying to write a story like this in a vacuum, and we have this tremendous embarrassment of riches in terms of all these resources. And yeah, there was a point where we realized we wanted the interactive videos or I should say maybe just videos, not necessarily interactive, is a little bit of a stretch, of the crew stations, so that as you read the book, you can hold your phone up to one of the QR codes and it takes you right to a video that just puts you in that crew station for just a little while on board the B-17.
Really?
And it was something where we were able to say, hey, we have this idea. We have this B-17. We've got a whole bunch of video people and GoPros and stuff. Can we put this all together? And it's not trivial to, you don't just sort of roll the B-17 out and go, buzz around because you want to shoot a couple of landings or something. But we were able to put it together and combine it with a new air-to-air shoot. So there's some air-to-air video as well as stuff from the crew stations. And then
Really cool.
Something that we realized when we watched the videos from the crew stations themselves is that even I want to try to say this politely, but they were a little bit flat. Like here's a camera mounted at the waste gun station. So this is really cool, but it's sort of 30 seconds of brrr, engine noise and stuff.
Right.
And so I had this idea, and I'll be honest, I had to push it a little bit because there was a little bit of resistance, but I'm actually quite proud of how they came out. Is what if we added in a huge departure from the typical way we would produce video, what if we had a little bit of sort of Hollywood fun with it? And what if we had some sort of faint echoey dialogue and some sound effects and things? So if you're at the waste gun station, you're just looking out on clear blue sky, nothing's really happening. But if you listen, especially if you listen with headphones, you'll hear chatter from the gunners. You'll hear
That's cool.
You'll hear the Messerschmitt roar by, and then of course blow up because he's the bad guy, and we got him. Things like this. And so that was a ton of fun to sit down and write little mini scripts for these little 30-second vignettes that are just soundscapes. It's just the audio as you see the video from that position. The radio operator station is one I'm particularly proud of because somebody somewhere out there is going to look at that, and they're going to decode the message that's hidden in that video. And I can't
Cool.
wait for the first person. I can't wait for the first person to find that and get back to us. I'm really excited. I do have to say that the unfortunate reality of the tail gunner video, the GoPro died as the airplane was taxiing out for some reason or other. So
Bummer.
the tail gunner video is the tail gunner getting ready for takeoff.
See,
Everybody
now
else
it's
is
just
sort
a
of
more
up in the
creative
air,
idea.
and we couldn't just not have one. But it was weeks and weeks of planning and coordination to find the time and the opening and the airplane schedule, booking the photo airplane, getting the B-17 full of us with video people and everything else to put all this together. So it wasn't like we could just say, oh, we'll just take it up back again tomorrow and reshoot the tail gunner thing. Now I do think we will reshoot that at some point, and we have the ability to swap out the file so that someday the link will point to what we think is a better tail gunner video. But for now, at least you get to see what it's like being back there as you're taxiing out.
That's
cool.
fantastic. Link. I did see those little video squares, whatever they're called, in the book, and
QR codes.
Thank you. I'm an old lady. I do not understand how any of that works. But I saw it, and I was like, "That's a great idea."
And you just point your jitterbug phone right at them. Next thing you know, it's like you're there.
Awesome.
Sometimes technology escapes me.
One of the things I really enjoyed was the day that we had. So in the book, there are, when we talk about changing crew positions, we did some photos around the interior, so you get an idea, of course, of what that station would look like. And it was myself, Ben, our curator, Connor, Brandon Jacobs, Connor Madison, the photographer, and Alden. I think Alden joined us too. At any rate, we went over there, and it was really cool. We actually brought Museum B-17 artifacts with us, and sort of crewed up the positions a little bit and geared up the crew positions so it looked like it was kind of getting ready for a mission, or maybe a little bit more of what it looked like during the war, with a parachute sitting in it, and the bunny suit that they would have worn later on, and like we had 50 cal ammo boxes in there and stuff like that. And I gotta say, it was really kind of, for a B-17 nerd, it was kind of neat, like crawling around the B-17 with like actual World War II gear and putting old headsets on and stuff like that. It was pretty neat. It was a neat experience.
Yeah, those are another favorite part of my book, was those little vignettes of photos of stuff that's going on inside the plane. I thought were done really well as well. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, looking at the time, and I wanted to make sure I wanted to get the story in, since our show is, but our theme is usually women in aviation. And I wanted to talk about June Morris. Would you tell us her story? Because I think that's one of my favorites from this book.
Absolutely. June Smokey Morris. I always pictured, when somebody says Rosie the Riveter, I always pictured the poster. I mean, that's like the image that just popped into my head. And I think a lot of people, that's probably true. June changed that. Now that we know June, she's what I think about when I think of Rosie the Riveter. She worked the night shift at Boeing and at Seattle, and her step on the assembly line was the last step. And what I believe it was there was a fuel tank they installed in the outer wing, and then they would seal up the outer wing with the panel, and then the airplane would get pushed out and then test flown, and then off to the base. It would eventually go. So she works her shift, finishing up in the morning, working overnight. She's told by Boeing that there was some sort of a labor dispute that was going on, and that she was not to come to work that night because there was going to be a picket line. And she goes to work, or goes home from work, and finds out, on top of all of this, that her dad, who was a merchant marine, was killed by a German U-boat. And at that point, for June, World War II became personal. She was going to go and build as many bombers as she could to get revenge for her dad. And she reported that night, even though she wasn't supposed to. Her position was a two-person crew, like a two-person position. She had a partner. Her partner was a bucker named Helen. And together that night, they crossed a picket line. Wasn't about anything else other than getting revenge for her dad. And her foreman actually tried to shoo her out of the factory, and she wouldn't go. And as a matter of fact, she said, if you want to, she was on top of a wing when he basically, said she had to go. And she said, if you want to get me out of here, you're going to have to come up on the wing and chase me out. And so instead, he just went out and put coffee on. And those two women by themselves at night completed out their B-17. I mean, think about how that must have looked. They were the only two women in that place working.
Giant factory. Yeah.
Giant factory. And they get the airplane built the next morning, and it's pushed outside. They got it done. And she told us a story, and we're out there, and her daughter was there to help tell the story. And we're asking her all this stuff. Then we're like, have you ever flown in a B-17? And here's a woman who built probably thousands of them and had never flown in one. And so the airplane was in Seattle. We changed that, and she jumped in and went flying and got to enjoy finally a ride in the airplane that she helped establish as a legacy airplane, I think, in American history. And the funny part also is that she gets out and gets out of the airplane. The media, of course, was there, and they wanted to do interviews. And they kind of just wanted to get a 30-second sound clip and then off. And instead, she drags them under the wing and gives them like a half-hour dissertation on ribbon. And so
that's awesome.
The crew is sitting back notes like, she's still at it.
She's still going.
Really, really deep lady. But that is, she is so symbolic of so many amazing women who built these airplanes, who flew these airplanes.
Yeah.
But yeah, June Smokey Morris is she's a rock star.
Yeah. One, her nickname is fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
And two, she literally became Batman. Which
yes.
I know so many people in World War II became Batman, but that's just one of my favorite examples of that.
Yeah. She's awesome. I mean, that's the type of people, both men and women, who we had. I mean, talk about an amazing generation. I mean, they come through the Great Depression, come through this challenge that basically a lot of people said, there's no way you guys are up to a fight with Germany and Japan. And this country, as it always does, just said, watch us. And just amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can draw a lot of strength from what's happening now from the greatest generation, and just remember, we can do this, I you got this.
Yeah. I mean,
we're sitting on a couch watching Netflix. This is nothing compared to what my grandparents went through.
Right. So locally, there was on the local news here in Wisconsin, there was a gentleman who was a World War II Marine who lived through, of course, these island campaigns, who had the coronavirus and has lived through it. He's okay. And they asked him, how bad was it? And he was like, well, it wasn't as bad as Iwo Jima. It's like, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah. Let's put things into perspective. Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the things I always say. No matter how hard my day is, I'm like, I'm not taking the beach. So just calm down.
Exactly.
That I'm not taking
could be way worse
in an airplane.
Right.
Not getting shot at. Yeah.
It's hard to overstate the value of an extra dose of perspective at a time like this. You said, nobody's asking us to take a beach. They're asking us to sit on the couch and watch Netflix for a while.
Just stay home.
I'm really good at that.
Yeah, something we all really excel at.
I've been prepping for my whole life.
I know.
Exactly.
And if you need
almost
help,
50 years.
We've got a great book that you can read.
Exactly.
To take up some of your time.
And there's free shipping currently, so bonus.
What was that code again?
That code again. Final mission, all caps, no spaces, because we are super creative with our codes.
Perfect.
I like it.
So, having assembled and written and assembled a book myself, Chris, how long did it take you, Chris and Hal, how long did it take you to actually get this whole book put together? When did you guys pull the trigger and say, we're going to do this?
Boy. How do you remember when we actually launched?
If I remember right, looking back, it seemed like your first full draft was it was late last summer, like not that long after AirVenture, like the August time frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And
yeah.
and then I know that that we got heavily involved with editing and supplemental writing stuff. It was a few months after that, so probably maybe late September, early November.
Mm-hmm.
So worked on it, and then I know that let's see, we got the books in March, so the final deadline to sort of get everything uploaded and off to the printer would have been right at the end of January.
Okay, so that didn't.
So
it's a short, actually pretty short for putting one of those together. So
it was, it was pretty intense. But I mean, of course, that's after what, Chris, 6-7 years of story gathering.
That's true.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
The stories come from 2013 to 18 or so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 5, 6, 7
5,
years,
yeah,
whatever
5
that
years,
works out to be. But so advice, if you want to write a book, it's really easy. It only takes a few months, except for step 0, which
Right.
is
And years
which
of
can take a
research
lifetime. Yeah, it
and-
can take
yeah.
years and years of research.
Putting it together and yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad that everybody was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Because we, 5-6 years ago when we were doing, when we were collecting the step 0 part, I don't think that would happen today. I don't think we have the amount of World War II vets
Yeah,
that are
that's true.
capable of getting back in the airplane.
Mhm.
And there's a story in there about the 10-man crew that we put back together. 6 of them are no longer with us.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that was just in 2014 that we did that flight. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, time's also going really fast, it seems like, but
That's true.
but our time with our World War II vets is certainly reaching sort of a pinnacle.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I know personally with Adam and I, we've interviewed a lot of World War II veterans for the work we do with aviation documentaries, and a lot of the ones that we have interviewed have passed away, and it's always a crusher the day you see the message that one of them
Yep.
has passed away, and because you get to know these people so well, and like they might not remember us very well, but like I feel like we really know them, and it's just a heartbreaker to hear that. So it's in like reading your book, almost a lot of your stories do end with the year that they passed away. So it's really fantastic that you guys were able to get these before that you could get these, I guess.
Well, and to give them one kind of final, not closure, but sending a lot of these World War II vets back on the B-17. We've done that with the B-25, and it's always just such a magical thing to get these veterans on the B-25 and to remember what it was like, and to have them reminisce and share their stories. Like it's just, I get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, you can see the years melt away when they get in there. So
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And calling them at home and telling them, hey, our B-17 is going to be in town. Can you come flying with us? You could hear the years start to melt away, like from the time that they answered the phone to the time to discussing logistics and where to go and things like that. You could hear definitely that there is a change in their tone.
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Chris, you had some very interesting people do the foreword or the recommendation in the beginning of the book. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So the foreword of the book is written by Frank Borman and Harry Friedman. Frank Borman went to the moon in 1968 on Apollo 8 as the commander, and I'm very fortunate. Hal and I are very fortunate to have him as a friend.
Not everybody can say that.
No, and I was, for a long time I was hesitant to say that, and then it's like, yeah, no, we're friends now, and he called me.
Yeah, he calls, right? Like.
Yeah, he'll usually, especially right now with everybody kind of shut down, it's about every day, and
Wow.
yeah, and he called to tell. I had to pass it along to Hal too right away. Was he texted first, and then he called, and he just said, you guys had had a big job in order to tell these stories correctly, and you guys pulled it out, and you did a great job, and that's something that you should be really proud of. And then he called me to tell me that it's a really good book, and I wouldn't BS you on this. He didn't say BS,
Right.
but he said, you know me, and I wouldn't BS you. And so that's, really a proud person. I'm really proud to have that as our forward. I mean, to have Frank and Dr. Harry Friedman, who is one of the guys who helped save the Memphis Belle. I mean, who is like the sort of godfather of the B-17 community. To have those great people who, by the way, my mother, who is not an aviation person at all, and how, I don't know if I told you this or not, my mom is like, wow, this is a really cool book. Like, so Frank Borman, does he work with you and Hal? And I'm just like,
yes,
no.
we met him on the moon as
Yeah.
a low lunar orbit.
And I'm like, Mom, that's an astronaut, and she's like, oh, but does he work with you guys? And I'm like, no. Like, it reminded me of Apollo 13 when they're like, they send in Buzz Aldrin to talk to Jim Lovell's mom, and oh, are you guys in the space program too? So it was like, no, Mom, Frank Borman doesn't work with us. It'd be cool if he did, but
I love it.
Awesome.
As compared to my mom, when Adam and I called Chris from our car one day when we were driving and looped Frank Borman in because we had a space question about Gemini.
Oh, it was a very specific question. The question, we were editing a piece, and somebody was questioning us whether it was Gemini or Gemini.
Yeah.
And I was getting tired of going round with it, and I said, let's really call somebody about that. So we called Chris.
Yeah.
And I said, Chris may know. And Chris was like, I don't really know. Hang on a second. And it was kind of like the old 60s Batman where the commissioner puts one phone down and picks up the other phone in the office. And you can hear Chris calling Frank. And I can't remember Frank's exact words, but it was like, geez, I don't know. Gemini.
Everybody said it differently.
He said, I said Gemini, and Lovell said Gemini. It's like, oh, good, Frank. Thanks for clearing it up. And everybody hangs up.
And meanwhile, my mom is sitting in the back seat, and she just has this look on her face, and she's like, is Frank Borman just on the phone in your car? She's like, wow.
Yeah, that just happened.
Yeah, we have a weird
This is what
life.
happens all the time, Alan. Just keep up.
Keep up. Aww. So we only have a few more minutes left in our podcast time, and one thing I wanted to ask you about, Chris, because I've also done a book before. How did it feel when you guys finally finished it?
It was. It's kind of funny. Hal played a large role in that because if it was up to me, I think we'd still be like, hey, wait a second. There's this story I remember. And Hal was one of those guys that kind of took me under his wing and was like, at some point, I know it's hard. You have to be like, it's done.
Wow, you make me sound so much nicer than I really was. No more stories.
No
Yes,
more.
stop
No more.
Throwing
Stop
a
it.
glass against the wall.
Yeah.
Save something for the final mission, remember?
Yes, exactly.
Save it for the sequel.
We mean it this time. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool for me. I know Hal's done books before. It was cool, and then the day it launched, it was terrifying because I'm like, what if people are like, this is awful, Luckily, that has not been the reaction. People are really liking it. Hal, what do you think?
It was amazing to see those first proofs of the cover. I know we brought one down or a couple down to you, and we had those around, and that's there's several stages during a process like this. I'm sure you know it well too, Kara, that there's stages where it gets real, or at least a little more real. So seeing the actual proof of the cover and saying yes, we approve of this, then of course picking the binding thread, to touch back on our favorite story of the episode. But then when you get a box and you pull out real books, it's and to be honest, for us, every month the magazine feels feels the same way. We started when you started a blank screen with a Word document open and a blinking cursor and just nothing but white, and then you get something tangible in your hands. And I know, this is the digital age, and yes, we do plan an ebook version of this as soon as we get that nailed down. But I'm a book collector personally, and so it always means more to me to hold something tangible in my hands. I mean, I've got I think thousands of books, and I have bookshelves in every room in the house, and I'll always want to be able to pick it up and hold it and yes, smell it, all those good things. It's just something tangible. So that always hits really hard. Like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing that actually happened.
Yeah, and especially with a book like this where the photos are so stunning, you kind of want to have the actual copy of it then.
Right.
It's tough to have Chris and Hal sign an ebook.
That's true.
Right.
Hey, it can be done. Okay, just if you want permanent Sharpie on your Kindle, right across the screen, we'll do it.
Perfect.
I'll sign your baby.
Well,
Yes.
Fortunately, guys,
Chris
that's
is
all we
often
have time
offering
for.
to sign bodies, but
And as a further note, I also offered that before we even had a book out, but still, yeah.
Well, guys, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, and I'm having problems with my mic. Can you even hear me?
Yes, we can. We still got you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, we'd love to keep chatting with you guys. I think there's a lot of stories we could tell, but that's it. We're out of time.
We're at our allotted time for our podcast. Thanks, Matt Jolly.
Maybe we should ask for an extension.
in these uncertain times, I'm sure somebody would come forth and give you extra minutes.
That's
Although
true.
I do have a meeting to get to on the phone in 3 minutes. So.
Oh boy.
Well,
I think
thank
I'm
you guys
enjoying
so much
it,
for being with us today.
Yes,
We
thanks for
appreciate
being
it.
here. And again, the book is called The Final Mission, and it's on EAA.org, and there is a code for free shipping, which is Final Mission, and
All caps, one word.
check it out. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and have fun at your next meetings.
It won't be nearly as much fun as this one. I promise you that. But thanks a million, and let me publicly thank Chris for letting me ride in his coattails in this crazy journey. What a blast this has been.
Yeah.
Not at all, buddy. I'm happy and honored to do this with you, man. We're in the same car together here, so.
And still 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
It's a big car.
Well, Godspeed to you.
Well, thank you guys. I think I'm in that same meeting with you, so I'll jump off here too.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to our show, and check out our Facebook page for more info. And thanks to our producer, Matt Jolly, for putting us on Warbird Radio, and Adam White, our recording engineer, who you've heard chime in a few times today.
Thanks to our sponsors, Hemlock Films and Spotlight Business Solutions.
And thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. And maybe it'll be under better circumstances.